So the 5, the 6, and the 7, security and safety. And with this, the center point of the 5, 6, and 7 is the 6. They're concerned with inquiry, doubt, checking things out, information. The more information, the better. Knowledge, ideas, concepts. I've noticed in spiritual practice, the head types are really good at visualization, tend to be really good at visualization, guided imagery, imagination. And so there's this movement into the head, because out there it's a very uncertain world. Okay, but I can control what's going on up in here. So they do it in 3 different ways. The 5s withdraw and retreat into the minds. The 6s anticipate. They anticipate negative scenarios, and they plan alternatives to circumvent what can go wrong. So they're the ones who are saying, be prepared. They're the Boy Scout motto, be prepared, or tell me the bad news first, so then I can manage the world. And 7s are running from worry very quickly into planning for interesting, pleasurable possibilities. So we'll go through them a little bit more, and we'll start with the 6, which is the center point of the fear type. Most 6s know they're afraid. Now, I do have every once in a while a client come through who's a little less conscious of the fear and will not know they're afraid. But what was very interesting, I had one client come in, and let's say his name is Jim Jones. Hi, Leslie, how you doing? Name is Jim Jones. Nice to meet you. He's talking really fast. And he had just read The Power of Positive Thinking. And so he had really wanted to. He'd been reading a lot, but I could feel kind of the anxiety and the fear. And as he was talking to me about positive thinking, he was like this. So with the 7, they're really in it. There's kind of a free-flowing movement. So for the 6, there might not always be an awareness of the fear. So where does attention go for the 6s? The attention goes to worst case scenario.
Yeah, what's the threat?
What's the threat?
What's going on?
And this would be the monk of doubting mind. So a lot of times if you're working with 6s in spiritual practice, Helen tells this story, it just cracks me up. She might, have a satori experience and she's in it, and then she doubts it the next day. Doubts that it ever happened, doubts this whole practice thing, doubts, it just comes up almost all the time. And so they might, with 6s, I was just talking to a 6 the other day from the JFK program, and she said to me, well, when I'm pushing you and I'm asking you questions, and really, I might be telling her about something, and it feels like criticism to me. Yeah. But she says, that's because I like the idea sometimes, and I'm testing it to shoot down the holes. So when I'm teaching a class, the 6 oftentimes is looking at me like this. And I can tell, and also too, then if you're a teacher in a class, you may not want to be, but sometimes you're the authority figure. Most 6s will describe that they are either compliant with the authority figure or defiant, and they can be overly compliant with one of the authority figures. Let's say they have a guru or a teacher. You try to criticize that teacher to a 6, and you'll get nailed to the wall. If there's somebody that they really may not respect or something like that, there can just be this kind of ongoing defiance, and it may not show real clearly on the outside. My son is a 6, and so teachers didn't know that he had this, but he would come home and it was just all the sorts of issues with authority. He had a 1st grade teacher, and she said that he had not put a period, and I said, so something about he hadn't put a period on the sentence, and he said, well, she erased it. I put the period and she erased it. And I remember saying, so when she sits at home and erases periods at night, and so, but for her,
she's probably an 8.
But for him, it's just this: you've got to question the authority. Rochelle,
I identify as a 6, and I got sent home from school one day in kindergarten because every time I thought that the teacher had not quite used her authority appropriately, and so every time she asked us to sit down, I stood up, and then she got everyone to stand up, thinking, okay, we'll try this again. So then I sat down, and she probably thought, oh good, now she's sitting down, got everyone else to sit down, I stood up again. Anyway, so I got sent home. Ever after, I was like the teacher's pet. So that really, and I still was, I always had the sense, like, kind of be in there with the teacher. That's the safest spot.
It's the safest spot, yes. And so, and I may not always trust you,
totally.
but if I keep you close, I can kind of feel a little bit safer and a little more secure.
Yeah.
And you bring up something too that just had me thinking, is that one of my questions when doing typing interviews for a 6 is, do you find it easier to be an advocate for the underdog than for yourself? And most all 6s will say yes. My son was in Tibet. There was an Italian woman abusing the guide, and Matt said, Mom, she doesn't get paid anything. She relies exclusively on tips. And Matt is he's definitely more introverted, and he just nailed this woman to the wall of how she was treating the guy. So I'm sure you can resonate with that.
Oh yeah, injustice and
Unfairness. So the defense mechanism of this type, and we all do it, we all project our version of reality out there. But 6s, the defense mechanism is projection, because the fear of perhaps my vulnerability is too big, of my own doubt in myself is too big, so I project all of the fear out there. So I may not respect the work that I'm doing, so I just noticed a look in your eye, so you don't respect the work I'm doing? And so I might land on one look, and all of a sudden it's out there, and there is data out there to support perhaps a lack of respect on some level, but I might amplify it if I'm a 6, and so I'm looking for supporting data for my projection.
And the healing part for the 6, speaking as a 6, is, there's that flight from fear, or fighting that which is feared, when the 6 begins to integrate and becomes, I guess, comfortable with their own inner authority, and their own realizing that nothing outside of yourself is actually ever going to hurt you in an ultimate sense. And of course, inside of you, what is there? It's God. Then that fight and flight projection begins to ease up. And,
so how do you know when you're trusting your inner authority?
Well, like I say to my students, how do you learn to make good decisions? By making tons of bad ones. I guess, you experiment a while and you see how it goes in the world. Is it wisdom, or is it just projection or schizophrenia or whatever?
Right.
You have to play with that.
Right. And so a lot of the addiction's going to show up just to mitigate some of that anxiety.
Oh yeah. Why does a 6 use? Because they're scared. You drink because you're a fearless man for a little while.
Yes.
And like psychedelics, I had a few experiences with that, and oh my God, to the heart of darkness every time. Thank you very much. I mean, I would just get launched into this cosmic grappling with darkness and fear, and usually I would break through on the other end.
And so how was that? So were you, because I've had people who told
me
that
it wasn't recreational.
They were repelled by psychedelics.
No, it was not fun.
No, that's what I
like I said, let's do acid and have a good time. Let's not do acid. Oh my God,
I had a 6 describe to me, we were doing a meditation, and I might have an experience of the Sacred Heart of Jesus as just kind of this luminous connection to love. And his Sacred Heart of Jesus, blood started coming out of the mouth, blood starts coming, the wounds are bloodied, and there's horns start to grow. And it just was a very different experience.
Wow.
Yeah, in the practice. I find this, and I don't know if it's like this for you, if you've seen this, a lot of times I find 6s really drawn towards studies about evil in the world.
Mm-hmm. Well, that surely has to be accounted for. Oh yeah, when I was growing up, one of my the biggest areas of my study from the time I was a teenager through college was the Holocaust. Like, what the hell happened? What the hell happened?
Why, yeah.
And if I could figure that out, account for that, then somehow I would come to wisdom.
And so you can notice the language here that John uses is like, if I could figure it out. If a 2, it might be, how could I help? How could I make this better? Or 4, how could I find meaning in this? For a 6, it's like, I'm going to try to figure this out so that it doesn't happen again. But my son is really absorbed. Right now he's writing a book on the devil. He loved sympathy for the devil because he felt kind of bad for him. He said, gosh, everybody's reading this poor guy, and he probably had a nasty mother. I mean, he really read the book Wicked. The Wicked Witch. She had people were really nasty to her. I think in high school or something like that. And so he's really, really drawn into studies of evil.
Well, I was thinking about the 3 pillars of Zen the other day. Is great faith, great doubt, and great effort. It had to be a 6 that came up with that.
Yeah.
Because that's what we do.
Yes.
I was like, yeah, we have great faith, that capacity for great faith, which is the healing direction for the 6. And great doubt, oh my God. And then great effort. I mean, 6s are troopers, they're loyalists, they make good soldiers and Marines and, you know,
Yes.
the practice guys.
Yes, the military's loaded, the police force,
Totally.
they're just
Martial
loaded
art
with
classes, you
sixes,
know,
yeah,
who here's a
loaded
6?
with
Anybody not a 6? Oh yeah, the instructor, he's an 8, you know.
Yeah.
So,
So I'm not strong, I'll lift weights, I'll feel, because there's an interior powerlessness, I'll do all of this so I can feel powerful on the outside,
Absolutely.
you know, so again, we probably need to move on.
Yeah.
But yeah, the clearly for the 6s, it's really a lot about the mitigation of anxiety.
totally.
the addiction.
And you get a temporary relief with certain drugs. So yeah, maybe not cocaine and stuff, but alcohol and heroin
Yes.
and the ones that soothe.
Yes.
And I have just a quick footnote here before we move on. We have a colleague in South Africa, a guy who plays this, and he says that heroin addict often for the male is a negative feminine. In other words, you can just take the heroin and, you know, in the arms of the Black Madonna, you don't have to show up, you don't have to do the hero's journey, you don't have to provide, you don't have to be a man on the world. And so, we're visualizing this program, an integral recovery program. There'll definitely be an aspect of rites of passages in the wilderness. So the man who's lost the masculinity, the healthy masculinity to drugs, or heroin in this case, will go out and reestablish that strength and earn it back. So anyway, I think that's pretty brilliant.
That is really, it's
What is the emotion with the 6?
fear.
Why do you ask?